We are all human first, movers second, and only then specialists. Ido Portal. Hi everyone, my name is Miguel Toro, and I'm back with a new episode of DiBS, Dance is Bullshit. For this week's podcast, we watched The Art of Not Looking Back, a piece by Hofesh Shechter performed in Paris Opera. The piece was premiered in 2009 at Brighton Festival by Shechter's own company and restaged for Paris Opera in 2018. The version we saw with Paris Opera is free to watch on YouTube, and you can find the link down below. Before we start our conversation, let me introduce my friends and co-host, Malcolm Sutherland. How are you, man?
Hey guys, nice to be here.
Max Levy, what's up?
Tough week.
And last but not least, Saúl Vega Mendoza, ¿qué pasa?
Hey, ¿qué pasa? How are you guys doing?
Boom.
Boom. We are getting professional.
Don't go back.
Now we can go back to chatting as if no one's listening. First thoughts on the piece? What did you think, guys? First few thoughts that you had. Any order? Malcolm, for example, that I was the first one to name.
Sure. Yeah, actually, Saul and I watched the piece together. I went over to his place to help him with his moving, so we ended up watching it together, which was nice. Yeah. So we're...
Thank you.
You already had your meeting already.
Yeah. We already had our private discussion. Private discussion. No. First impression, really nice. I really enjoyed. Just the general feeling was really nice after watching it. Interesting work and kept me glued to the screen the whole time. And yeah, I mean, he has a really nice way of using group. From what I've seen from his work, he uses the group really, really smartly, like nice moments of unison, and then the sort of group collapses and re-emerges together without you sort of realizing. So it's really, he's really good at that. And it was a really nice work for sure.
Yeah, I also did really enjoy the piece, and I have to say I really appreciated the last few minutes of the video. I really appreciated to be able to listen what he had to say a little bit about the piece, no? At the end of the video on YouTube, Aurélie Dupont, the directress from Paris Opera, is is interviewing Hofesh, and it's a very short interview, no? It's only like 5 minutes. But it was enough for me to understand a bit better the piece and what I just had seen. And it helped a lot to have a bit of insight. It was really beautiful. As Malcolm was saying, he's genius. I mean, geniusly using the group. But also how he puts in between like a little solo, but that doesn't give too much protagonism neither to that person in between unison sections, and how he breaks the unison to then surprise you again like a minute afterwards with a surprising unison for a second again. It was really beautiful, both structurally, like choreographically, but also artistically, as a plastic thing to see in front of your eyes. I love the lighting. I really like the lighting in his pieces, and this set, I mean, is super simple, just a white box that changes so much with the lights. So all in all, very good.
Yeah, if you watch the video that we are linking in the description, don't forget to watch the last 5 minutes of interview. I think it's quite interesting to hear the choreographer speak briefly. It's just 5 minutes, but it's nice to hear what's the meaning of the piece. It was great. Max, your thoughts?
I was quite bored, actually. I did not enjoy the piece very much. It was my first Hofesh piece I've ever seen.
Okay.
And I know he has been around for some time, and even especially in recent times, is quite popular, if that's the right word. So there's a lot of like hype around Hofesh that I never got to experience firsthand. And maybe this is not even a example of experiencing it firsthand, since it's not live and it's not being there to see the show. It's online. But I was, I don't know. I didn't walk away from it enchanted in any way.
Oh, weird. Because I did enjoy it. I was not amazed by the piece, but I did enjoy it a lot. Also because I've seen already work from Hofesh live and by his own company. That's also maybe a reason why it's not that amazing, this one. But yeah, I still thought the same as Malcolm or Saul, that the construction of the piece was just great, and that I don't know, somehow I have the feeling that in other pieces that would be constructed in the same way, that is basically coming back to repeating the beginning over and over, just getting maybe a step further and then coming back to the beginning again and restarting and having so many repetitions, maybe those pieces would bore me and wouldn't make me connect so much. But on this one, it just made sense, with the text that he was giving. I had it written here. It's like a bucket with a hole. No matter how far you get in the piece, you always have to restart. So it was connecting with those thoughts. So I don't know. I felt they were quite interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I also.
For me, I just, for some reason, I could see the structure of it and where it was rhyming, but I just simply didn't find it beautiful from my perspective. That's all.
Yeah. Saul, you were saying?
Yeah, no, that I wanted to add to what you said, Miguel, that I mean, because I've also seen his work live with his own company, as well as with other companies. But yeah, I found that the dancers from the Paris Opera, I was really pleasantly surprised,
yes,
to be honest.
Me too.
No, because
completely, me too.
Yeah, I mean, from that kind of company, that is pure pure classical repertoire. No, it's one of the, I mean, if not the company, the classical company in the world, no, that it's that it's renowned for classical ballet. And to see that they did this piece, which is quite grounded and heavy, and the quality of the movement, it's really connected to the floor, really, and yeah, pretty much opposite to what classical ballet is.
Yes.
And to see how they pull it off, it was really beautiful to see. Really, like, wow. I was really, really pleasantly surprised, as I said. And yeah, in addition to what you were saying, no, Miguel, that maybe it's because it's not with his company, but actually not.
Yeah, this that you said connects a bit with two topics that I wrote. That I think it's good if we talk about them. Maybe we can start with the one that is restaging a piece with a different company. That this is something that most choreographers that are lucky enough to have their work bought by another company, they have to do, and it's something that we see all the time, how different it can be when a company that is just a repertoire company is taking how do I say, the responsibility to make a piece with such a specific vocabulary, make it on stage and make it look decent, not being trained for that usually. And yeah, it's good that you mentioned already how good the work was from this in this time, because I saw a trailer with the Hofesh company, and they were looking great, like amazing. But I didn't have any problem watching the cast in Paris Opera. But zero problems. I found that they did an amazing job, coming from a very far place to what I think Hofesh vocabulary is. And yeah, I don't know, Malcolm, how you felt about that, if it's also your feeling or not really.
Yeah, definitely the same as Seoul. I was really shocked and surprised how well they did. My perception is like old, let's say, I don't know, from like 10-15 years ago, that I have this perception also of like classical dancers being able to move that well, and that nowadays with more contemporary repertoire creeping into these big classical companies, that they naturally have to be more adaptable and more versatile, no? But that I just simply haven't had the chance to see such a well-known classical company had to do a piece like that. But yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised at how well they did it. And I told Seoul after we watched it, if I had not known it was Paris Opera beforehand, that I would not be able to say that if I hadn't known it, if you know what I mean. So no, really, they did a fantastic job. Of course, I mean, he's using a small amount of dancers from a huge company, and I'm sure not everyone in the company will have been able to perform that repertoire as well as they did. But nevertheless, I think they did a really good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Max?
Yeah, also.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Saul.
No, just
Go ahead.
something that came up to my head. No, it's just that also within the actual company in which a piece is created, when there are different casts, usually the piece looks different, a bit different at least, with one cast and with another cast, you know. So imagine what it can be working with a company that's not used to that kind of work, no? But that doesn't mean that they're not able to do it, no? I mean, as we see very well here, no? And as Malcolm was saying, probably that's also an idea that's a bit old already, no? Nowadays, dancers have to be more versatile, and also Aurélie Dupont, she's bringing, since she's in the direction, many more contemporary pieces and choreographers to either create or restage their pieces, which is something that I find is great, no, to bring a bit more diversity to your company, no. But yeah, even within the actual company where the actual work is being created, with different casts, it can already look different, no?
Yeah, definitely. But Max, I was thinking, can this be a reason why you didn't connect? I know you don't have all the information because you haven't seen the company from Hofesh, but do you think it could be a reason that the dancers are not owning the style as much as you would think they should?
I think I have a slightly mixed perspective. I know that they performed the same piece in Berlin in the past couple of years, or maybe even in the same year, before Sascha Waltz and Johannes took over directorship of Staatsballett Berlin. I know that they performed this piece in there under Nacho's directorship, and knowing some of the people that performed in it, they really enjoyed it. They had a great experience, and they felt really genuinely connected to the piece. But I also know then that then when the company changed, and this is, I know, a little bit of a tangent, but when Staatsballet Direction changed and they brought in contemporary only dancers, then there was this complaint about some classical dancers no longer being casted to do contemporary work. And so, and I know I was looking at your notes for today's podcast about the idea that a dancer can do every style, or the perception or expectation that people should be able to do everything, and then if they can't, that they are valueless or something. I think knowing all this background information about the piece, even if it's not from this video, I think it gives me slightly different perspective watching it. I didn't think that anyone looked bad at all. I thought the Paris Opera cast looked quite good. But knowing then that this was, I actually didn't know that this was restaged on Paris Opera. I thought it was a creation at Paris Opera, and that it had been restaged on Berlin. And then I later read the notes that he had made the piece like 10 years ago or something on his own company. So I thought they looked really good, but it made me then wonder the whole time, like, as a choreographer, where are the compromises? Not because that someone is good or bad, it's just someone maybe is not going as deeply as you would normally find in other experiences. So where do you compromise like the work, or how do you divert the direction of the work so that it enhances what's really happening there? So it enhances the dancers of the Paris Opera, it enhances the experience that's happening there, instead of trying to recreate the past. So I didn't dislike the Paris Opera dancers at all. It's not like that. I don't think that made me dislike the piece. It was more from a choreographic aspect that I disliked it.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, these things that you were saying made me think on not exactly what you were saying about how impactful it can be for the dancers now to restage a piece that was before, and how impactful it can be for them, but actually on the repercussion of Paris Opera performing a piece like this at this level. I think it's quite huge. Also, it's showing us a new, not new because it's been happening for a few years now, but it's been showing us that it's getting more and more and more mixed, the disciplines in dance. That ballet dancers are not ballet dancers only anymore, and the directors asking for it. I don't know if it's something that they are demanding, directors and choreographers demanding from the dancers, or something that they are reflecting because they see that dancers can perform many different styles.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least from my personal perspective, if I was in a company that expected every dancer or most of the dancers to be able to do 2-3 different forms of genres, let's say, I would push my best to do the best at every genre, but I know that I would be missing the mark on some of them. I don't know, not every dancer is like this. Some dancers really have the talent to do every style at an amazing level. But I would much rather accept my shortcomings and difficulties in doing, let's say, classical ballet again on stage, than to pretend I don't have this difficulty, or to say I still deserve to be doing it or be placed in a high position and given more responsibility just because I want to. I would want to back up my desire to do that with actual improvement and knowledge and growth, that I can do that. So I understand that there's this reflection of the dancers that do want to do it, and some dancers that are interested in going quite shallow, quite deep, even deeper into not just like contemporary, but like really uncategorizable dance. And I think it's great that the directorship responds that ballet is not just a form of tradition keeping, and that there's new things, that a ballet company, quote unquote, is becoming more of a dance company. And I think that's great. But I think there's a really important factor that it would be a shame for strong companies to become the kings of mediocrity by making everyone do everything because they think it's fair.
Yes.
I think it's better, at least from my perspective, to know who is good at what and to enhance those things instead of saying, well, everyone is supposed to be able to do everything, so I guess everyone should be cast for this. I mean, this is a huge blanket statement, but yeah, I would, this is my opinion.
Yeah. Anything to add, guys, on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a it's a quite interesting subject to talk about because I mean it's that's daily life in most theaters in Germany, for example. Like we all work together in Nuremberg, for example, and that was a company in which we had very different pieces with very different from very different choreographers that had very different backgrounds. We had pieces from Ohad Naharin to pieces from Matzek that they come from completely different backgrounds. And, you know, for me, it was a challenge, and I really loved the challenge, no? But up to a point, it started at some point to become a burden, something I was suffering to keep up, to keep being able to deliver a good quality work, doing pieces so different from each other, so I get what Max is talking about, but at the same time, yeah, it should also be, I mean, ideally, in an idyllic world, it should also be up to the dancers to decide if they want to work or not, because, for example, if I put myself in the situation of a director that wants to have different kinds of work in his company or her company, and he brings or she brings, they bring very different work in the same season, for example, and they start deciding, okay, you're good at this, you will do this piece, and you're good at that, you will do that piece. If I put myself in the dancer's shoes, maybe I won't be that happy, if I'm put to do something that someone else is deciding for me,
Yeah.
I would rather do an audition and decide if I want to go full on for it in that audition or that casting, or if I'm not that interested and I know other colleagues of mine are, then I would bring a gear down, and slow my pace down and do still my job and do it well, as well as I can, but know that other people are more motivated to do it than me, and I would support them too,
This is a topic to expand on, maybe on a different episode, but the labeling a dancer, like putting a label on a dancer, this dancer is this, and that dancer cannot do anything else that is not that. Maybe this is something to remember for other episodes, I think.
Yeah, from this.
Yeah, it's just... Sorry, man.
No, it's okay. From this, we can go to many other sub-subjects.
Yes.
No, I just want to add a bit about the. It's interesting. It's like the that these choreographers come and do this kind of audition or casting in a company, and then it's all about how, let's just say hypothetically that everyone wants to do that work, and it's all about how you react to doing that style on the day. But there are also those dancers that are as capable or even more capable, but just can't adapt themselves as quickly as others. Let's just say for this piece for example, there were other dancers that could have done it even better, but just they were not able to do it on the day of the audition, so therefore they were not in the cast. But maybe if they had time to really work and understand and go deeper into that style or technique, they could have done it. So it's just it's interesting to think about, and kind of sad that it all depends on this sort of audition scenario.
The one day audition, the one day of your life to choose that you can do something right.
The one day, if you're lucky, sometimes it's like an hour.
Sometimes yes, it's 1 hour, and you need to be really fast learning material to be able to show it decently, at least. That it's another thing, like just to be fast learning. And probably you go, sometimes there are dancers that learn slower, but they just go further because there is a progression. And sometimes the dancer you see in the audition is the dancer you are gonna see after 1 month of work. And that is a way of cheating also for some dancers that are lucky to be very quick, and some others are not.
This is interesting you say that, because one of the comments I made afterwards was that I wrote a lot of my commentary as a viewer, as someone who also makes work, but one of my other comments was actually from a perspective of a dancer. To perform in something like this, and to participate in something like this as a performer, I knew that the cast in Berlin really enjoyed working on this piece, and they had a great time learning it. And it seemed like the cast from the Paris Opera recording also really enjoyed performing it. They were very into it.
Yes.
There was no doubt about it. They were very into it during the show, and during the bows, everybody seemed they were beaming to take their applause, which is a great sign for an experience, great sign for process, that the dancers wanted to believe and commit themselves to this. So I definitely can't lay any criticism on that. But my question was kind of like, as a dancer, approaching a work that you've never experienced, approaching a work that you have maybe no other anchors to, how would you do that? I mean, we've all done it because we've learned many styles at this point, all of us. So, of course, subconsciously we have done it. But I don't know, like, Miguel, what do you think? Like, when you had to learn something brand new, what kind of things go through your head that, maybe if some of the people listening are dancers that are younger or have not had so much exposure to different styles or different choreographers, what kind of things went through your head when you were learning different new things?
First in auditions, me personally, there is a moment of stress that I think anybody here or anybody in the world has, but I don't consider myself someone that gets too much in his mind. So after that first point of stress of okay, what's happening on this new style, then it's gonna sound maybe too obvious, but I use my eyes a lot, seeing what the person in front of me is trying to do with his body, and what is trying to achieve also with his own body, to replicate that. And also something that I learned maybe a bit later, not so much when I was younger, but is to try to analyze when the person in front wants to know something that you personally can give to the piece, and when you need to just try to shut a bit down who you are as a dancer and try to become who you can be on that style specifically, and try to erase a few ideas that you could have on the movement and just decide to go strictly to what the choreographer or assistant is giving you. So yeah, you need to be completely open to whatever the person in front of you is saying, and sometimes can be very very wide what the person in front is saying, that you are lost. But I think it's just a hard time that we need to pass by, all of us. Auditioning is not nice. It's never enjoyable, especially when it's called auditioning and not having a workshop. Well, not when it's not called, but when it's not done as an audition, but a workshop instead. That sometimes people call it workshop.
When it's called a workshop, but it's actually an audition,
yes,
even worse.
yes. So those things can come up to my head right now.
It's nice what you said about, like, there's the times where you have to consider who you are as a dancer and what you bring from that. Then consider the times of who you can be, who you could be, who you could become as a dancer, that you maybe don't have active knowledge of it yet in your body, or you're not conscious of what you can do, and you needed this information from a new choreographer or a new experience to help discover that. And because I think when I was thinking about it, I also thought quite the same about, like, well, I can only comprehend new information by recombining old information. Like I have this experience or that experience or this experience, and I need to rearrange what I'm seeing in front of me in a different way with old words, so that I can bring new arrangements and new versions of that, and then that will help me become something that I didn't think of before. And I don't know, I think it's nice that way you put it.
Yeah, I don't know, also because I felt that personality is super important, especially when you are creating new work. And me finding myself as a choreographer and trying to find someone for my ideas, I needed to see the personality of those dancers, and not there was for sure a level of quality of dancing that needed to be achieved, but the personality was almost as important. So that's why I realized also on how much I needed to take care of how much from myself I give into whatever work that I'm gonna perform, whether it's a repertoire that I need to learn or just a new creation. So I don't know, I guess, Malcolm, you've also had the idea of looking for someone for one of your pieces when you were creating, that didn't need to match a specific standard of dance, but rather a way they acted on stage, a way they looked more mature or less, and be younger with the energy.
Talking specifically about the audition, or just looking at people? Sorry, you cut out a little bit, so I missed a bit.
Don't worry. No, I was saying, like, looking on an audition specifically, because I think that as audience we do like to enjoy the personality of a dancer on stage. At least I do. I don't know if I can speak for everyone, but myself I do. So I think that you as a choreographer also have been looking for a personality, a maturity, or a younger dancer with a different energy.
Yeah, I think it also depends how you want to work. No, it depends on the choreographer and how you want to work. I guess you'll get some choreographers that's, depending on how they work, they will look more purely at the person's ability as a dancer, and then you'll get completely the other end of the spectrum, where they will almost not worry too much about their ability and just trust solely in their personality to bring whatever it is they want to bring through in the work, you know. And I guess I'm somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. I definitely, the ability of the dancer, if they have something that inspires me, then that also takes my attention as much as the personality. But yeah, I think, and that's also changing the older I get. I think the personality is becoming more important to me, like the older I get, and as my work or the kind of work I want to create changes, because I'm working with the dancers in a more specific way. And yeah, I don't know. It's not just. I mean, there are so many different aspects to personality as well that come into consideration. I mean, the atmosphere of a creation or rehearsal period is so important, and you want to bring someone in that's also gonna enhance or complement the sort of atmosphere that you want to create, in order to have a coherent and energetic and positive process. So there's so many different factors that come into it. So
yeah, you think that you are looking more for, like you said, that it's becoming that more and more you try to aim for the personality rather than the danceability? Is it because you've seen a lot of dance already, that I know you have, and it's a bit more difficult to get impressed just by movement?
possibly. Possibly, yeah. I think that's true, and I think that's for me in general. Not just when I'm looking with choreographer's eyes, when I'm just looking in general, I think there was a time before where I could watch a piece and be impressed by pure movement or pure athletic ability, whatever you want to call it, But yeah, somehow now I need that complemented with other things. So yeah, no, I think that's definitely true. I think there's a direct correlation there between getting older and the impact of just purely being a good dancer has diminished as I've got older, for sure. But it will never, I think with me anyway, personally, will never get to a point where that's not important at all. Yeah. It will always have some importance for me.
Yeah, I asked because I was feeling that way with myself. Like, I see that slowly it's becoming more and more important how you perform the step rather than how technical you are with that step somehow. Yeah. I don't know, Saul, how do you feel? Because you have also experience as choreographer, and I have worked with you as a dancer, and also you being the dancer for some of my pieces, and I really feel you that the way we are talking is something that you feel like as well. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, but not only as a choreographer. I mean, I don't create as often as you guys do, or as much, no. But I do like creating, and I do try to keep on creating, but also as a dancer, or like, meaning also in the studio, watching my colleagues and working in a piece, or on stage performing a piece of whatever kind, but also from outside, from the audience. When I am watching a show, I really love and enjoy watching people dancing, not just machines trying to reproduce um, some steps, or some material that the people in front in the studio have been working on them, or have been trying to induce, or I really, I always thought, no, that first, before a dancer, I'm a human being, and I love seeing that. I not only love being that. I mean, when I perform or when I work, I really like being able to express myself, and being able to dance myself, no, to be able to express my way of interpreting what the choreographer in front of me or with me in the studio is trying to create with me. But I also love watching my colleagues, no? And as a choreographer, I do ask for that. I often even give as a task or as an incentive, or at least I intend it is an incentive. Maybe it's I don't know, making things worse, or making the dancers a bit more stressed for the show. But before the show, sometimes I even ask them, okay, today think about this, or try this, try, I don't know, try to play with the rhythm, try to play with pausa, or try to play with whatever, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, a choreographic element added
Exactly.
to the mix.
Exactly. So I do enjoy that, and I do enjoy, yeah, having having people working with people that are able to show their personality when they're dancing, no?
Yeah, actually, you are connecting a bit with the in the last interview, in the last 5 minutes of the video, the interview with Hofesh. He mentioned something when he was saying something like, "I can I be honest? Okay, so if I can be honest, I'm gonna say that I wasn't expecting anybody to perform my work in this company. I was thinking that they wouldn't show themselves as human on stage. Or if he didn't say that word specifically, he said something around that area, and that's why I brought this small topic of the preconceptions of the contemporary dancers thinking that a ballet dancer cannot be human on stage just because the way we perceive ballet many times, or the way we have learned, some of us, ballet, it was just from a technical perspective, and just be pointing your feet in this direction, and do as many periods as possible. And some of the other teachers have shown you what a real ballet is. But yeah, this preconception before to even start working with someone, that, oh, he's a ballet dancer, so he's not gonna be able to move as much or to be that sensitive on stage. And yeah, that is something he shared in the interview, that he was not so keen that he would be able to do a good job with his piece on this show.
Yeah, that's true. Spoiler alert.
On that topic, I think that, if you had to put it, this is a terrible analogy, but if you had to put technique on one end and personality on the other, and ask to find somebody in between that has a balance of both, I think that's really, you start looking at it as if they're opposites, or they're not exclusive, or you need to have someone that has both, and there's there's plenty of dancers I've seen who are technically amazing and have no personality. There are plenty of dancers who have amazing personality but just don't have the technique to support what I would like to see on stage, or what I think is nice on stage, or what I think I want for my work. And in the end, it's not, for me, like two separate elements, but it's like, if you have the honest and genuine personality that you want to utilize on stage, do you have the technique to do this? Not do you have the technique to do the steps, but do you have the technique that helps you enhance your own personality on stage? Mm-hmm. Do you have the sensitivity at the very tips of your fingers, so that when you're doing a movement, it goes all the way and you see your personality even just in the movement of a finger? And not because you are laughing or sad, or you have character, or that you have facial emotion. It's just, is your body in a technical sense so in tune that it can also express emotion? And I think that's, I don't know, for me, like, they are one and the same in the best world, because it has nothing to do about separating those two concepts into, well, he's okay with personality, but he's really good with steps. It's like, well, how, I don't know. I understand when
How
someone
to
says that,
measure
because I
that,
also look
yeah.
at it that way. But in the best world, it's like you want to be able to not separate them, because the whole point of dance is to be able to physically express an idea or an emotion or a feeling or nothing, but to physically express it. And the improvement of technique is not the improvement of technique. The improvement of technique is so that the vehicle for expression has more choices, has more possibility, has more options, has more limits, and
Can we?
at
Sorry.
the end of the day, we are human.
Yeah. Sorry. Just cutting you for a second. Do we think that when we say the improvement of technique, actually we mean the improvement of mobility? Because when we say technique, many times it goes directed to specific ways of moving in specific dances. But to become a performer, to thinking that what you were saying of let's say the final dancer that should be able to express the final one to express
Perfect dancer.
Are we human or are we dancer?
We got a title.
Nice. Copyright from the Killers.
It's the final dancer.
No, I was saying like to express through movement anything, any emotion, you don't need to work on technique. You need to work on possibilities for your body to move. It's not a specific technique that you need to work on, but to have the capacity with your body to have the mobility enough and the mobility quality. I don't know if mobility is the right word, but I just went for that one. To be able to be capable of showing anything with your body.
Yeah, I don't know. And the direction Max was going with his talk was really interesting. And I mean, also you can have both. You can have both an amazing personality and an amazing technique, but not know how to use your personality to sort of shine through with your technique. It's also a different thing, not to be able to learn how to connect sensations or emotions with your body, even if you have both if you have a lot of both, So yeah, and it's also interesting to think that there are also those dancers out there that somehow maybe you think they don't have much personality when you're in the studio, or they're kind of maybe they're shy or quiet or whatever, or you think a bit timid, but then when they come in front of an audience, then suddenly they become this completely different person, and they're suddenly they're just dancing in a completely different way in front of an audience, and something about being on stage just brings them alive, and that's also kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's actually quite true that the person you are on the studio and the way you work, it's not necessarily how you are on stage. I've heard many assistants, and I'm sure you too, that ask you to be performing on the studio as if you are on stage. And to me, I can work on that to some extent, of being completely focused on the studio and trying to give my best on the studio, but there is a difference when you get to the stage, to me at least. I don't know how you feel, guys, but
there is a huge difference.
I don't know,
Sorry.
Okay, I don't want to say something and afterwards feel like crazy, but good. You back me up.
Well, I mean, I think, but I understand, there is a huge difference, but there's definitely something about, at least for me, even if I'm in the studio, if I'm doing a run through or if I'm performing something, there is still the audience of, your colleagues. There's still the audience of yourself and your own expectations of how good you should be doing something. And I said this is a very personal perspective, but there's still this critical observer of course, my personal experience on stage might be different, but I still pretend I'm on stage when I'm in the studio. At the end of the lights and costumes, everything is different when there's 1,000 people in the audience. But even in the studio, there's something important about the way that moment happens that is not that different for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, it depends on the rehearsal specifically. If we are doing a run through and the piece is set already enough, I think there is a point in which I also have the feeling that I'm performing now, even if I'm in the studio. But the difference between the studio and the stage happens anyways to me. But there is this. Let's say many times there is an expectation from the choreographer or the assistant that you are performing already when you don't have the tools yet to be performing, when you are still figuring out your material and when you are still learning even the choreography. That to me disconnects a bit with the idea of showing your personality without the technique behind you to back you up. And sometimes I feel like, no, sorry, I like for me to perform, I need to feel good with the step first. I need to have on my mind what I'm doing, and then I try to give you as much as I can. But I don't know.
I think I have a very different perspective on that in the studio.
Okay.
I mean, even though we've worked very well together, like I've never felt you slacking, and I know that you have a very different perspective, but I think they are very different, my way and your way.
Mm. I mean, yeah, I'm happy we could work together fine.
I hope it was.
No, that. What?
Yeah. It was for sure, Max.
No, I also disconnected there for a bit.
Don't worry.
But you know what you were saying earlier about this definition of technique or definition of mobility and stuff. Like, I speak from a ballet background perspective, but you know, I think a lot of times the average teacher taught me the artifice of ballet, the kind of results of ballet, or the product of ballet, but not the purpose. Some of the best teachers I had have taught me that, and that's where I think this myth of personality versus physical execution ability comes from. Like, because we're taught in a way where the physical execution is so important that it becomes divorced from the personality. But you know what I said earlier about the sensitivity at the tips of your fingers at the end of a movement, and I was not talking necessarily about contemporary work. You know, this is just as applicable to ballet, and that when you're doing a port-de-bras, that your personality is part of that port-de-bras, and it's not about showing off with a smile and adding flair to the rest of your personality outwardly, but that at the very end of your fingers, there is still the sense that your person that you're supposed to be on stage for that character or that moment is all the way to the tips of your fingers. And at least when I look back on my education and my colleagues in school and what we were taught, it was a lot of like, well, it has to be there because that's the rule, that is the goal, you know. But it's like, then when you get on stage, half the dancers are dead underneath their smiles, not because they have no life, but because their movement and their life are not connected.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know, Malcolm, as a amazing ballet dancer, what do you think?
I'm muted, but I was laughing.
Why are you laughing? I mean no, because also I have the feeling that Max, Saul, and me had a much more classical background, and the way you trained had classical for sure, but it was also centered in other ways of working.
Myself?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, yeah. I can't. I mean, I went to a good school also, and although it was mostly ballet focused, we had other areas of techniques to learn and stuff. But it was a very good school, and it did take care of us as young people as well, like very well in that sort of like difficult age.
Mm-hmm.
But although I still think, I think technique is still generally overemphasized, and the things that Max was talking about now are cannot be overemphasized really, and cannot be taught. They should be emphasized from a younger age. I feel like it's kind of like when people are young, you have to sort of teach them technique, and then eventually later you'll tell them that personality and all the sensitivity has to somehow sort of flow through as well. I think that can also be taught from a younger age to sort of to individualize a little bit more and make people feel, I don't know, a bit more unique in a way somehow.
Yeah. This is part. Oh, sorry, Saul, go for it. I am talking a lot today. I feel more like the host, so I'm talking. I'm talking a lot.
This time I was just saying to agree with what Malcolm just said. I didn't have anything to add.
Great. No worries.
So,
Miguel's becoming self-conscious about his hosting abilities.
Oh yeah. No, I just wanted to say something because I think that has happened with our teachers before. The maximum difference in years, I think it's 7, like between me and Saul, and you two guys fall in the middle. But I think all of us have heard from our teachers that having technique is gonna give you the possibility to do anything, to dance anything. And especially from my background, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but I would guess so, that a ballet dancer, a dancer that has good ballet technique, can dance anything else. And my opinion is that is completely false, and we have been speaking about that having technique is not enough. But having that, this is also another preconception from ballet dancers, thinking that because they are good at ballet, and ballet is the mother of all dances, that is a lie, in my opinion, at least. We can discuss that. That
it was made by a guy after all, so it is the guy, the father.
The father, the final dance is the final dance. This one.
Louis was a guy.
But I don't know, this idea that a dancer, because a ballet dancer, because he is good at ballet, can do any other style, any other contemporary style, because we are just throwing ourselves around in the floor. This is, of course, very, 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 very narrow-minded. But just to say that I think is as wrong right now the ballet dancer that is thinking that he can do anything without a proper training before, that he can do any style without a proper training, then is as wrong as the contemporary dancer thinking that a great ballet dancer cannot do something else with some training. We are on both ends, we can be wrong.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I mean, I didn't have, my education didn't make me believe that ballet will allow you to do anything, but I have definitely met many people that are ballet dancers that believe one or both of these lies, you know, so or dancers in general.
Yeah, and I hope that people see like this kind of piece like Hofesh Shechter with Paris Opera, and seeing how good those classical dancers can do that kind of work to sort of shatter any myth about this kind of huge divide between contemporary and classical and other techniques. I mean, in my opinion, there are so many similarities and connections that people just choose not to see or to understand through like ignorance or myths or whatever you want to say. But there are so many similarities between these techniques, and if you go deep enough, you can kind of discover and see them for yourself, in my opinion. But
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny that at the beginning of this episode, Miguel, you quoted Ido Portal, who is a movement coach, but not specifically in the category of dance per se.
He's one of many things. One of many things.
He started as capoeira, I think, capoeira fighter, no? And from there, he kept pulling from that string and kept pulling and kept pulling and kept pulling. And yeah, he's become a movement coach and movement. Yeah, I mean, Miguel knows a lot about him too. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's um, he's done improvisation, also like contemporary dance too, but a lot with fighting and martial arts work too. I mean, he just moves and moves incredibly well.
Yes. I mean, the thing is that what I quoted at the beginning of the episode is basically the main, how do you say, his philosophy just said in a word, in a line, you know, like his
Motto.
philosophy.
Motto.
Yeah, his motto. Yeah, exactly.
Motto,
Thanks.
yeah.
The talking about having movement as a way to utilize your body to do anything and not go into any specific genre of movement, you know. Having he has done from contemporary dance, that if you see some videos of him improvising on the floor or even upstairs, he has done circus, he has gone to gymnastics, he has gone to fighting, he's a fighting trainer even from like very, very famous fighters such as Conor McGregor, you know, that he is an MMA fighter, and you wouldn't expect someone like that being the trainer, someone like Ido Portal being the trainer. So
yeah, I've seen those videos.
Yeah, if someone that is listening doesn't know who is Ido Portal, go and check, because if you are a dancer but you are interested in moving, not only dancing, you are gonna be amazed by that guy and how his trainings are using, I don't know, improvisation, using balance, using focus and attention. Is just wonderful to see.
Yeah. So yeah, something that all that we've been talking about for the last few minutes about Ido Portal and movement, and whether dancers are able to do different techniques or different, however you want to call it, no? Because dance is, I mean, some people call it contemporary dance, some people call it modern dance, classical dance, but it becomes such a blur at some point, no? It's a bit indescribable. What Max was mentioning earlier, actually. So yeah, something that is in common is that, for me, is that it depends a lot on the self-consciousness that an artist, a dancer, or a person has, about their body and about their capabilities, and the humbleness with which they take that, how they accept that and how they put that to use too in their work. I've been around for a while, and I've seen both cases, and many in between, but I've seen both extremes, if you will. I've seen people with a lot of capabilities, a lot of them, but they were simply not in sync with them. They were simply not, not aware or too insecure about them, maybe even scared about them, about becoming something, bigger and getting out of school and going to work as a dancer, And I don't know. I've seen people with a lot of potential that wouldn't connect to that potential, and I've seen people with not so much potential but such a will that made them go through, made them become professional dancers, especially because even though they had not many capabilities, like for example physical capabilities, that you require to have to be a good dancer or to be a dancer, they were aware of them and they took them with such humbleness that they accepted them so well that they worked on them and they worked their way around and they became beautiful dancers too, that talking about school time, but as a professional also, you see a lot of people dancing that sometimes you even wonder how they made it into a company. And sometimes you're amazed that these people are like the way they are dancing also, other people that dance like they are like demigods of dance, they have
almost
such
final dancers, half final dancers,
almost final dancers, So I mean, these all of this to me sort of means that it depends a lot on on what I was saying in the beginning, the the how you take what you have and how you accept what you have, and how conscious you are about your capabilities and about what you can do and what work can bring can bring into your plate,
Yeah. So, guys, it's a good time to wrap it up, I think, this podcast. But first, we were thinking to create a little ending to the podcast, and we came up with the idea to give you guys, the listeners, a recommendation at the end of every episode. And this recommendation is not gonna be only choreographers, but instead pieces, specifically assistants, books about dance, documentaries, anything related to the dance world. And for this time, Max is gonna be the one giving us a little recommendation.
Hey, okay, so this is my recommendation for this week is a documentary that came out in 2009 called La Danse, especially since we discussed the Hofesh Shechter piece Dance by the Paris Opera-Ballet. La Danse is a documentary that follows the lives of the Paris Opera, directed by Frederick Wiseman, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but it follows the daily life of dancers in the Paris Opera, meetings at the Paris Opera, costume department, underneath where the technicians work, rehearsals, performances. It's a very interesting documentary. I watched it in the theater back when it first came out. There's no narration, there's no explanation. It is just a camera and a theater. It's quite interesting. You can see rehearsals and performances from works by Wayne McGregor, Matsek, Angeline Prejlokaj, Petipa, Pina Bausch, Sasha Waltz, Nureyev. I would highly recommend it for anybody who has an evening to watch just some dance without sitting down to watch a piece. It's quite nice.
Great. Okay, so then this is gonna be the end of this episode. Thank you guys for spending the time with me today in the podcast, and thank you to the ones listening. I'm really happy that you made it this far. See you guys next week with another episode. We will be coming back next Thursday. Bye.
Oh,
Ciao. Thank you, guys.